All right, good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Michael Briggs, Transportation Planner in the Planning Department, and I'll be reviewing the Walk and Bike Plan update that we've been working with Public Works. You'll recall at the last meeting, Felix Castrodad with MTA came and spoke about the in-motion plan update, and then I'll be focusing, as I said before, on the Walk and Bike Plan, which is the city's bicycle and pedestrian strategic plan. Next month, we'll have Parks here to present on the Greenways portion of the plan to play, or the Parks Master Plan. And so remember that all of these plans inform each other and are tied together through Nashville Next. And this summer, you will have an opportunity to amend Nashville Next, and we'll be asking you to incorporate these other transportation plans. The big thing with this update that we heard, residents have expressed that they want to see implementation and they want to see it tied to a comprehensive citywide biking and walking planning program. And we hope to manage expectations by offering more transparency and organizing projects around these these 5 categories. And we have introduced 3 new areas which focus on low-stress bikeways, which I'll talk more about, Vision Zero, which is around safety improvements, and a living lab to test low-cost designs and pilots. I won't have time to get into the sidewalk repair, so I'll spend most of my time on the new sidewalks and the low-stress bikeways. Beyond just the projects that are in the plan, there's recommendations around policies and programs where we can have significant impact, and there are cut sheets with case studies of best practices that we've seen in other cities and a timeline that Metro can consider for implementation. And so I would encourage you, as you look in the plan, to look at some of those cut sheets for that additional information. And as with our other plans, like Nashville Next, input has been very critical to this process. We've had community meetings, online mapping exercises, subcommittee meetings over the last 9 months. And getting into some of the details involving the bikeway network, the big emphasis is on accommodating users who may not want to bike in traffic, who may not be as comfortable in mixed traffic, and we're calling these new facilities low-stress facilities. So it's trying to attract a different type of bicyclist. And currently we have about 47 miles within Davidson County, and this plan recommends expanding those facilities to 188 miles of low-stress facilities. This gives you some examples of different types of low-stress bikeways. And so really what we mean is that we're striving for some sort of separation between traffic using things like bollards, plantings, or delineators that give bicyclists more comfort, and I often compare it as if we're taking our greenway system and putting it next to our streets. The bikeway network that's in the plan, you'll see dark blue, light blue, and green dashes that identify the new facilities, and it's really focused on the urban core so that we improve biking because of densities that are closer into the urban core and because of transit access. Then as you get into neighborhoods, the greenways become a significant transportation connection, making that link between your on-street connections and into the neighborhood. I want to point out that there are actually 82 miles that are identified as being priority bikeways, and we have some funding scenarios that are in the plan to illustrate the type of impact you can have building the network in several different funding scenarios. So this gives an example. The blue lines here, if we dedicate $1 million per year over 5 years, what could be achieved. Changing that to $4 million per year, you can see the impact on the network. And right now we currently spend about $1 million per year. And if we up it to $8 million per year, you can see the build out of the network within about 5 years. So involving sidewalks, which are a lot more complicated and a lot probably bigger issue that we hear throughout the county. We have a significant deficit of sidewalks on our streets. And so about 1,100 miles of existing sidewalk exists, but we need about 1,900 miles to really cover all of our streets. Our geographic size plays into some of that, but this means that we have to be incredibly strategic about implementing the sidewalk program and really identifying areas with the highest expected pedestrian demand and the highest needs. So really looking at destinations and where our population is located. This briefly, I won't get into the details of this, but I wanted to point out with the prioritization that it was purposely connected to the Nashville Next centers and corridors, that played a big factor into it. And then with the change, we're also emphasizing safety and health and putting a significant emphasis on access to transit, neighborhoods, and schools. So when you look at the sidewalks, there are 4 categories that you'll see. And again, it's around destination and transit access, connecting to schools, offering safety improvements, and beginning to connect gaps. So where we have sidewalks that have been built, beginning to make those short connections and getting those gaps completed. This gives you an idea of the priority sidewalk network that's identified. So when we just run the scoring system, this is what comes out as the empirical scoring. Again, I wanted to point out that one of our big challenges compared to other cities, so when you start looking at other cities for how much they spend and their sidewalk network, our size often skews some of this information. So we focused in, I want to point your attention to the priority sidewalk network line, that is about 66 miles that we focused in on, and the cost on it is about $430 million. So it's a significant price tag. But similar to the bikeway network, we want to also paint for you some funding scenarios. So if we spend about $15 million per year, these are the sidewalks that can be completed in 5 years. At $30 million per year, which is currently what we're doing and has been the most that we've spent within Metro, this is what could be completed in 5 years. And then at $86 million per year, this is what would be achieved in 5 years. And this is not to say that Metro is even has the ability to staff or complete this amount of projects at this funding level, but it just gives you an idea of the challenges that we're faced with sidewalk funding. So in terms of implementation, you'll hear us talking about being more transparent. We'll be taking the scoring from the priority sidewalk network, beginning to add justification as to why we may switch some projects out just based on the scoring. Once we know funding amounts that are adopted by the council, we'll be taking that with a draft list that will then be published and reviewed at community meetings. So out of those community meetings, we'll get additional feedback and then come up with a final list. And this will go on every year. And so it'll be a revolving process that happens every year. And so we don't intend for the plan to remain static and just produce a year or a 5-year list of projects. As part of that, we'll be centering a lot of our information around a status tracker. So this is an example from Seattle. It shows you projects that they're completing, and we anticipate putting all of the projects that continue to move forward on Metro's website with information of where the sidewalk project is, if a project stalls, given reasons as to why it has stalled, and another project moves forward. And so we think this will be a good way of organizing our sidewalk projects going forward. So with that, I want to remind you that you can access the draft on our website. Information can be sent directly to the project manager at Public Works that's on it. And we will be wrapping up with the final draft over the next few weeks. Thank you.
Great job, Michael. Any questions, Michael, before we get into the nitty-gritty? Great work. I really like the status tracker. That's very cool. I think that that will be great for the citizens. So, all right. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
No questions?